Okay, I clicked live on the back end. It says I'm live. Let's see the front. Yay, we're
Yay!
live!
We did it.
Yay! Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to our YouTube live. Okay, can you guys type in the chat where you're tuning in from? We're always so curious to see where you're tuning in from. Is it the US? Is it abroad? I see some French in the chat, which is exciting. I'm gonna run this through Google Translate later because I don't speak French. The only thing I know is I don't know, which is je ne sais pas. That's all I know. Okay, well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our YouTube Live on Brain Education TV. My name is Linda. Of course, you've seen me on this channel, and I have these two lovely ladies who I will introduce in just a few minutes with me to join me on this live. So first of all, I want to mention, if you didn't know, May, which is the month that we are in, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And BETV, Brain Education TV, of course, there are many aspects of brain education, but the one that we really talk about and focus on is mental health. Because for me, and then also many people, and then the two lovely ladies that we have here that I will introduce soon, don't worry, also benefited with mental health from brain education. So now, I want to introduce to you these two lovely ladies. I invited two brain education instructors with me on this live to discuss how brain education, the study and the exercise, the lifestyle that I talk about on this YouTube channel, has helped us, the three of us, with mental health. So let me first introduce somebody you might have seen on some of the videos on Brain Education TV. Her name's Courtney.
Hello. Happy to be here.
And then also Danielle.
Hi, everyone.
And Courtney also is from Earth Management TV, who is a partnership YouTube channel with Brain Education TV. And Danielle also makes content for Earth Management TV. And she also has some videos on Brain Education TV too, but she is very active in the adoptee community on top of EMTV from her own experience of being an adopted person. Yes. Okay, so I see that people are typing in the chat. So I see Dubai, India, Miami, Belgium, Albuquerque, Pakistan,
Wow.
Switzerland. This is a
Amazing.
global mix.
That's so cool. Welcome, everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. I think mental health is such an important and interesting topic. It's so good to see many, many people from all different parts of the world. If you're just joining us, please type in the chat where in the world you're tuning in from. We always love to see where our subscribers and viewers are coming in to our channel from. So thank you all so much. Before we get started on our topic, I do want to mention one thing, and that's the super chat. So the super chat on YouTube, if you don't know, is in below the line where you type to chat. There are three icons. There's like a happy face icon and then a rectangle with, I think, the symbol of your local currency. So for me in the US, it's the dollar sign. I think it's your local currency, and then some other icon. If you click the rectangle button with your local currency, that's your way of donating some money to Brain Education TV to fund and support the content that we create on this channel. So if you've benefited from Brain Education TV, if you want to show some support for mental health, if you want to just show some love or shout out or in any way, please feel free at any time in this chat to click the super chat and show some love to Brain Education TV. We would appreciate that so much. Okay. All right. So with that, let's get started. If you're joining us just now, again, please type in the chat where you're tuning in from, because we love to see where in the world you guys are coming from. All right. So the topic today is brain education and mental health. First of all, the three of us all have different ways in how we were impacted by mental health struggles. Mental health is something that's a lot more common than we think. It's something that a lot of people suffer from in darkness and alone without talking about it, because there's kind of still, it's getting better, but still a little stigma about mental health and being somebody who is struggling with mental health. And I know just from talking to you, Courtney and Danielle, that we all have different bits and pieces of mental health struggles that we were holding before brain education. So I want to talk about that first, our three different mental health struggles. And I want to start by asking Courtney. And like I mentioned earlier, you've probably seen her in a few videos on this channel. She talked about her struggle with anxiety in a couple of the videos. So, I'm going to give you the floor, Courtney. Can you share about your personal journey with mental health?
Sure. Yeah. Although definitely a little vulnerable for an anxious person, I would love to. So I actually like to start my story off by, if you really told me that I would be doing a YouTube live stream or videos or something like that 10 years ago, I really wouldn't have believed you, because that's how paralyzing my anxiety was. Some people have high functioning anxiety depression. That was not me. So I was really getting to the point where it was getting hard to live my life. And growing up, I always felt a little bit different. I always felt weird. Um, I was shy, and some like social skills went right over my head. So just being around people, adults or kids, was tough. So especially classrooms, even, but parties, gatherings, crowds, were always really tough. And later, I realized that a big reason for that was I'm very sensitive and I'm very empathetic. So I would be kind of feeling the energy of what was going on around me. And when you're doing that all the time without realizing that, or without kind of nobody's educating you about that, you start to feel crazy. So actually a big part of my story is gaslighting myself because I was an empath. So, and I maybe you guys can relate to that. If you're a highly sensitive person, you can kind of make yourself feel crazy until you develop the awareness that that's what's happening. You're really like an antenna for the energy that is around you. So in addition to that, of course, I had a lot of negative self-talk, criticism, and really just berating myself all the time. That kind of became my world. I believed I was bad, I was wrong, I was dumb, and I really kind of hammered into myself that I was stupid, I was ugly, I was undesirable, or never amount to anything. That so yeah, then no wonder kind of living life started to get really, really challenging. So by the time I was 12, I was self-harming. By the time I was 14, I was in therapy, and I went through multiple psychological testings, all of which were really traumatizing for me. And just kind of fueled this belief there's something wrong with me. Everybody else seems to be okay, and there's something wrong with me. So I kind of adopted a mode of operating system of avoidance and escapism. So by the time I was 15, 16, 17, I was doing a lot of self-medicating, to just not be in my body, to not feel like myself for a moment. And whatever could kind of get me out of this reality of pain and loneliness. So naturally, the healthcare system, I was on multiple different types of medications, most of which just sedated me, or some of which like really made me feel like a zombie, like not like a real person. And my parents just didn't know what to do. They really must have felt so helpless. They did what they could. They did what the system enabled them to do, but nothing was really kind of helping. And I remember being really ashamed of my condition, which kind of added an additional layer. Like I really shouldn't be this sad. I shouldn't be this anxious. And I would be comparing myself to other people all the time. How come they can do this and I can't? So now I know everybody's going through their own struggles, and you never really know what's going on with the person at any given time. But at that time in my life, I felt very isolated, very alone. And I lived in this world where it felt like everybody else could and I couldn't. And I was just kind of stuck. So academically, that was a challenge. And later I found out it's because I learned differently. But this fueled the feeling stupid all the time. So when I started to look for colleges, I ruled out a lot. I wasn't, smart enough for many careers, or even to like study in a normal way. So I leaned towards art school because that was at least a little bit different. And I chose to go to art school in Scotland, which is not next door to Boston. So I had some family there. I had some connections there already, but I, realized in retrospect, that was also part of the escapism. I could really never get far away from myself enough. And in fact, while I was there, I kept spending time thinking, oh, maybe I'll transfer somewhere else. I'll move somewhere else. Over here, it might be better. I was never mentally kind of there and settled. So of course you're coming of age too. So the self-medication got worse, the depression got worse. And by the time I got home, I was really, really a mess. And I really didn't want to do anything with my life. I was really stuck. But started working as a pet care provider, mostly dog walking for various companies. I volunteered at Franklin Park Zoo. And that worked for a while because, I had a lot better and easier time getting along with animals. I didn't feel judged by animals. And in fact, some days went by, I actually didn't talk to anybody at all. And so I was kind of continuing down that road, and I finally got hired on the ground floor for a big startup. It was like a pet resort or a spa, and it was huge. They had like a vet built in, they had a pool, they had a pet store, and it kind of, from the outside, might have looked like a career advancement, but it turned out to be a really toxic environment that kind of felt like high school again. And I just couldn't kind of keep up with anything. So I think it was 2011, because of some suicidal thoughts and planning, I started to, I thought, okay, I just need the world to stop. So I admitted myself to McLean Hospital, which is a mental institution in Boston. So I learned CBT there, which was super helpful. I think that for the first time, I felt some autonomy to manage the intrusive thoughts and negative self-talk on my own. And I actually ended up leaving the program a little bit early with some determination to try and manage my mental health on my own. That's kind of like the beginning of my healing journey. Anyway, I know that's a lot, maybe a little bit of an overshare even, but that's kind of my story of how bad things were in my mind and my body.
So Courtney, thank you so much for sharing your story. The part that I really resonated with was gaslighting yourself, because that's definitely something that I did. I feel like when you're not in a mentally good place, you have all these limiting beliefs about yourself, and you try to find every justification of how that negative perception of yourself is true. Like if you believe, like, I used to believe like I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, I'm not blah, blah, blah. And I tried to find every justification, like twisting things to see that, oh, how that person treating me justifying how I believe about myself, and then it perpetuates that cycle. So the gaslighting yourself is something that I really do resonate with. And then also people in the chat, like I know you guys are typing in very busily about where you're coming in from, which is great. Mauritius, that's really that's awesome. Mauritius, Canada, US, Texas, India, Russia, Jamaica, Dubai, that's amazing. So keep typing that. But I also, if you guys are listening to this story, because we're at the part of the broadcast where we're kind of sharing about our story first. If you resonate with any part of what Courtney just shared, or what Danielle is about to share next, or what I'm about to share too, if you resonate with any of it, I would love to see that too. So bits and pieces of things that maybe you're struggling with, or somebody's struggling with that, please type it in the chat, because later on we're going to talk about brain education and how that helped us deal with those specific points. So it would be really fun to see what people are dealing with, because if you type it in the chat, other people who are tuning into this live can also see it too. So if they see, oh, I thought I was so alone, like Courtney mentioned, she thought she was so alone in her struggle. But I think the more we talk about our personal experiences, the more we see we're not truly alone in our struggle, that a lot of other people share similar, or if not the same exact things that we're going through. And just that knowing that I'm not alone in this and somebody else is going through it too, somehow makes you feel a little bit better, a little bit more understood, a little bit less lonely. So please type in the chat what you guys are going through. So Courtney, thank you so much for sharing your story. That took a lot of courage, vulnerability, and I think just you by sharing already broke a lot of stigmas about things that I shouldn't say about mental health, or things that like I should just keep to myself because nobody wants to hear that side of me. I think just talking about it breaks the stigma and gives other people permission to do the same, to come out, share their story, and it's okay that you're going through what you're going through. There's nothing wrong with that. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so next is lovely Danielle. So Danielle also has some of her own struggle and story about dealing with mental health. So I would like to invite Danielle, please share your story, your personal take on how you were doing before you found brain education, the things that you were struggling with in terms of mental health.
Okay, thank you, Linda. And thank you, Courtney, for your sharing as well. I also really resonated with certain parts of it. And I can see someone mentioning in the chat about self-sabotaging. That's a big part of my experience as well. I feel like for me, I had two major influences that impacted my mental health, which I really just started understanding and unraveling as I took my own healing journey. But the first one is that, as you mentioned when you introduced me, Linda, that I was adopted. So I'm an adoptee, adopted 10 days after I was born. So basically what happened to me is I experienced from that some kind of what we can call a relinquishment trauma, or it's also known as a primal wound. I didn't, of course, understand it when I was little. Again, I learned about that later. But then on top of that, when I was about 5 or 6 years old, my adoptive mother, my mother who adopted me and raised me, she started to suffer with mental health. Very extreme form of anxiety and depression, which really came out of post-traumatic stress for her. She had an experience in her childhood, a sexual assault experience in her childhood that impacted her mental health. And it really just sort of exploded at the time. It was kind of hidden inside of her until I was about five or six, I want to say. And then it really came out. And so I watched my mother suffer with very extreme anxiety and depression on all kinds of medication, in and out of psychiatric hospitals, and she had electric shock treatment twice. So those two things together, again, I didn't really understand about the wound, and I was busy trying to help my mother, but somehow in the mix of that, I became kind of excessively anxious, worried, and fearful, really. I became consumed by fear to the degree that I really struggled with neuroses and hypochondria from like maybe early. It started showing up when I was 8, 9 years old, but then it got worse as I became a teenager. And it felt like the more in high school and college that I learned about the world and just things, the worse my mental health became. So I used to feel like on a level of 1 to 10, like fear on a level of 1 to 10, I was like 20. I just lived at the highest level. And I felt I just felt like, how can anybody be happy? So I really understood what Courtney was talking about, empathy. I definitely think I empathed my mother's suffering a lot. That definitely exacerbated it. I empathed her anxiety. I almost was trying to like take it away from her. So I was taking that anxiety on, but for me, how it was manifesting is causing me to not be able to function, like not understand the world. Like I would look around and be like, how could anyone smile? Do you know how horrible it is? Like human for just being human, this human predicament, it just scared me. And I never felt safe. I felt the world was unsafe. I felt people were unsafe. And I had really ultimately no trust in myself. So I think at the bottom, it was a deep insecurity and a confidence issue where I didn't feel my own worth and value at all. So I was just consumed by those thoughts and emotions. I had zero controllability over it whatsoever. That's why I didn't understand. How is anyone smiling? Like, what do they know that I don't know? Because it's dark out here. You used the word darkness, Linda, at the beginning. I felt myself in darkness, like as if there was a cloud over me. So when I was a freshman in college, I sought therapy and that helped a little, but it was my junior year of college when I reunited with my birth mother. I found my biological mother, and that was the beginning of, I was kind of keeping it together up till that point, and then it all just unraveled, like everything unraveled. And my neuroses and hypochondria and excessive worries and fears spiraled into like paranoia. I just was desperate for help because I felt like I can't live like this. And I found a therapist at the time, but the therapist wasn't helpful for me. You know, sometimes I had one therapist in my life that clicked and one that really didn't. So nothing was working for me at that moment. And I felt really desperate to solve it. And I had some intuition, like I need to go within and find some peace inside, because there's zero peace inside. And I'm not sure what to do with my life. I wasn't sure how to, graduating from college, how I was going to get a job, how I was going to go forward. I felt the first thing that I have to do is get a hold on my emotion, because they completely controlled me. My negative thoughts, very persistent. Someone would be talking to me and I'd be listening with like 3% of my attention, and 97% just perseverating and obsessing and worrying and fearing. And it was very, very dark. So between what I experienced with myself and what I saw happen with my mother, and then what I learned about myself and as an adoptee, I've developed, at the very least, a lot of compassion, because it kind of led me, that unraveling after meeting my biological mother led me to go on a path where I started to find some peace. So it was a very, very difficult childhood with my mother that way, and with having that relinquishment wound hiding in me. It was difficult socially, and just being in a human body, I found very stressful. So I understand how stressful it can be. So that's really, I mean, just a general description of what I was experiencing every day, all day, 24 hours without relief, until I started to find some relief when I started my own path towards healing. But I had to really hit a bottom point. I had to really bottom out after that. My reunion, I completely unraveled is the best word. And then I knew I'd hit the bottom. So I started to, I searched and I ended up finding brain education, and that was the beginning for me.
Danielle, I think you mentioned something that's very important, which is about family that also is suffering from mental health, and how that affects my own mental health. Just being around somebody who is going through their own mental health issues, and not only just absorbing what they're feeling, but because I'm absorbing what they're feeling, that is getting translated into creating some internal struggle within me as well. So me dealing with mental health at the same time having people around me, especially someone as close as my mother, dealing with mental health around me, and how that affected you at growing up and in your life. I think that's a very important point that maybe a lot of people can resonate with, dealing with people around them that they love who are going through mental health struggles at the same time.
Yeah, and just one more thing I want to say about that I neglected was, I mentioned the word safety. I think when you have a parent who has mental health struggles at such a young age, you can feel your sense of safety and the protective boundary is broken. So it really rattles and shatters our feeling of being safe, which I think breeds these anxious, worried, fearful thoughts. So yeah, thanks for pointing that out, Linda.
Thank you so much, Danielle, for sharing your story. Or you have a different angle and different kind of experience. Same mental health struggle, but different angle, different experience from Courtney. So thank you so much for sharing and being vulnerable again. You know, it's not easy for us to share such intimate details about our mind and body to the general public on YouTube for everyone to watch now and then forever on the channel. So thank you so much, Danielle, for sharing that aspect of you and bringing light to that part of you. All right, so I guess it's my turn now. So yeah, as I mentioned in the beginning, all three of us have different angles of mental health that we struggled with. So just kind of piggybacking off of what Danielle just shared about her mother having mental health struggles, I also had a mom who struggled with mental health. And you know, my unique kind of perspective is I grew up in a very Asian household, you know, so in typical Asian cultures, mental health is not a topic you discuss. And it's something that definitely we struggle with, but in the Asian American community, especially, mental health, what are you talking about? That doesn't exist. You know, like go get some sun and get rid of it, or go do this and get rid of it. That's not a real thing you're dealing with. That's such a very privileged, complaining mind that you have. It's not real. So when I was growing up watching my mom suffer from like behaviors that look like mental health struggles, I didn't understand that it was mental health. So my parents, you know, they are immigrants into this country. So, you know, with being an immigrant, there's a lot of struggle, right? You have to make it in a foreign country, you don't even know the language. They had 3 kids by then, you know, taking your kids to a foreign country and trying to make a living was very difficult for them. So I think all that stress caused a lot of tension in their marriage. And so they had a lot of marriage struggle, right? But then I'm the first child, so I think growing up, the thing that I would hear my parents say the most, because I would see my parents so unhappy with each other, but the things when I would hear them yelling, they would say, I can't even divorce you because we have kids. So that my like young 4-year-old mind, like 3-4-year-old mind, I absorbed that as, oh, I'm the problem. Because I exist, my parents are unhappy. Because in my mind, I thought, if they're saying because the kids are there, they can't get divorced. If I didn't exist, my parents could be separated and they could live happy lives. But because I'm here, I'm the problem. So that kind of was the fertile ground that I planted my weeds of mental health struggles as I grew up. From the beginning, since I was a young age, I told myself in my head, from the information I gathered from my parents and outside, that I should not be here. I don't deserve to be here. And because I am here, I'm causing people unhappiness. So that was the foundation. Then I grew up, and because again, I'm in an Asian household, I stuffed all my feelings in, because if you express your emotions, if you express your feelings, that's a sign of weakness. It's unacceptable. There are other more important things we need to focus on, like studying, get a good job, you know, like getting good grades, like those are more of a priority. So I just stuffed in all my feelings. And when I look back on my life, I was actually suffering from depression, but I didn't know it was depression, because the depression that I had was a very high functioning depression. So, you know, people when they're depressed, they like don't do anything. They just like curl up under their blanket and just cry. And that's the typical kind of image of depression that we have. But the depression that I had was, on the outside, I looked fine. I was smiling, I had friends, I went to school, I did my daily functions, went to school, did my tasks, did really well in school, had a lot of good friends. I looked popular, I looked social. On the outside, people would never guess that I was dealing with depression. But every day felt like, why am I here? What am I doing with my life? I'm not happy, but it wasn't like an extreme happiness or an extreme sadness. I was just in this middle purgatory of nothing was making me happy, nothing was making me extremely sad. I was just blah, like flatline, just flatline kind of, nothing was exciting, nothing was too up or down. So it wasn't until later in life that I understood that that's also depression. So I just thought I was unhappy. I just thought I was, you know, yeah, I just thought I was unhappy because of my family environment, but I understood that as depression, and I understood that because I had that, it was really affecting my relationships with people, especially my friends, you know. Uh, I was lashing out in ways that probably I shouldn't have to people that I love, but I didn't understand why I was lashing out. And now I understand that it was coming from a place of deep hurt, deep hurt. Because again, as I mentioned, from a very young age, my thing that was controlling me was my existence is the problem. People are unhappy, right? So that was a very big driving factor that made me really suffer from mental health. I really didn't like myself. I didn't have good relationships with people, all, which is weird because I had a lot of friends. I don't know how I had a lot of friends and was this way. So I reached a breaking point, like Danielle said. You really have to reach a low point for you to be like, okay, something needs to change. I need to do something about this. So I reached that low point, and then like Courtney and Danielle also mentioned, that's when I found brain education. So now I want to move on to what is brain education, right? Because we said in this live, it's brain education for mental health, and I titled our live like that on purpose because the three of us have a unique experience dealing with mental health ourselves, family with mental health, and then how we three very commonly found brain education at different points in our lives, and how brain education helped us with our mental health struggle. So if you in the audience, if you resonate with a little bit of each of our stories or a lot of one person's story, I'm sure there's something within our three stories that you resonate with and you're struggling with, and you're looking for answers or solutions to help you overcome that. So let us talk about how brain education did that for us. Maybe that will inspire you, give you some hope that there's a way out, that you don't have to just pop medicine every single day and that's the only way to cure this kind of thing or deal with this kind of thing. So let us talk about brain education now. Okay, so if you have been watching our channel, brain education is the foundation of all of our content on Brain Education TV. If I were to describe brain education basically is a lifestyle of connecting your mind and body, and through that connection, finding a way to activate your brain to create your own health, happiness, and peace. Because a lot of the times in society, and you guys can just interject if you have something to say, a lot of the times in society, we look for happiness outside of us. Someone make me happy, love outside of us. Someone please give me some love, whether that's from like a sexual relationship or a friendship relationship. We're always like, give me from the outside. But when we live this way, we live very dependent on our environment and our circumstances, and we're not going to have these people who give us happiness and love outside all the time. So brain education is a way for us to practice through mind-body exercises to connect with our brain, to activate the part of our brain that lets us create our own health, happiness, and peace, regardless of what's going on outside. Yeah. And then maybe you guys have your own interpretation of brain education, but I want to ask you now, and you can include that in your story that I'm going to ask. But so I'm curious, now that you shared your stories, at what point or how did you find brain education when we were all in our rock bottom? How did you find brain education? And if you guys can share how it improved your mental health specifically, you guys shared the things you were struggling with, but how did it improve those things? Like, was it a certain exercise from brain education? Was it like a teaching from brain education? Was it the community aspect of brain education? So what aspect of brain education helped you the most? And then maybe also share about how you understand brain education that you could say and share to our audience. So how about Courtney? Let's start with you.
Sure. Yeah, first, I think it's just fascinating that all of our stories did incorporate that rock bottom. I guess I didn't like put that piece in before. And maybe that actually we do need that. We need to get to a point where we're really done and craving change. Or at least that's what happened to me. So I went to the hospital and I kind of left with some determination to manage my mental health on my own. And medication is good for some people, but I tried it a lot of different ones, and I wanted to kind of avoid that too. But in order to do that, I knew I was going to have to put in effort somewhere else, right? I couldn't just keep going along the way I was going. So I'd never tried yoga, and actually the thought of doing it was extremely intimidating to me. Going to any class, in fact, was extremely terrifying, because I'd kind of created this world for myself, or this box, that avoided me to make mistakes, and going to a class where I might make a mistake was not okay. Being publicly embarrassed was not okay. But it was actually somebody I met at the hospital who encouraged me to go with her to what was called a breathing and meditation class. So I definitely didn't want to go, but considering what I just mentioned, I thought, well, I better go try. And it was mentally challenging for me, but I did start to notice some changes, some of which were right away. I was more okay, not fully okay, but I was more okay. I had, just moments where I could relax, even though they were really small, and then the anxiety would kick back in. And I think I also had some really kind of patient teachers at that time. So that's the first thing, that how brain education helped me was really the awakening to take ownership of my own health. So if you've heard "take back your brain," I think that kind of encompasses that. Like, before, I was just waiting for doctors, psychiatrists, therapists that would tell me what's wrong with me. And when I really started to believe that I had the authority to do something about it and to change it, it was very empowering. So brain education kind of gave me that self-empowering notion that I could take care of myself. And the other was training, or the brain education exercises. And if you guys have watched any of our videos, you'll notice they tend to be more dynamic, where there's more movement, there's tapping, there's stretching, it's not all kind of quiet and sit still and breathe, which obviously is good for you. I'm not saying don't do that, but for me, at the point of my life, if I was just sitting still, then this would get worse and louder and bigger. So I actually needed to stimulate my body. I needed something that helped ground me and connect me back. And I think, Linda said that it's really a lifestyle of mind and body connection. And that's at least what I needed to help pull me into the present, which really helps with anxiety. And to this day, Danjan tapping, lower abdomen tapping, or second chakra tapping, is still my favorite exercise to help me get grounded and to get centered. But I think the most impactful for me, or what really made sustainable change, were the teachings or the principles of brain education, because I kind of was stuck in this mindset that everything that happened to me was punishment. I would stub my toe and think the world is punishing me. And it's like a very victim mentality, but anything about my situation, my circumstances, what I was feeling, it was like this somewhat paranoid idea or belief that I was being punished for being alive. Things aren't just, happening to me. I'm being punished. So what I learned in brain education was, that's not the case, right? Things are actually happening to us. We're living life. Life is helping us to grow and overcome our challenges, to evolve as a human being. And once I had that perspective shift, that somebody from above wasn't trying to whack me down every time I failed at something. I was actually supposed to stand up after I fell down. And that's really how I felt. I felt like somebody was kind of persecuting me. But life gives us our challenges to help us awaken, to help us to develop grit and strength, and help even define who we are. So that really changed things for me, and continues to change things for me. And kind of jumping onto that, really discovering that I existed beyond this kind of small world that I created for myself. I existed beyond, my name, my body. I kind of uncovered this feeling of my heart, my soul, and that I was bigger than this world that I created for myself. And that I think also made this long-term kind of shift for me. And I could let go of the littler things. So I guess you could kind of summarize, I really started to get a more spiritual perspective about my life. And that really helped me change my mindset about being depressed and being anxious. And then the last one is, brain education really gave me a vision, because I started to be inspired to share what I learned with others. And to help others manage their mental health has really given my life meaning. And now I believe if you don't have meaning in your life, how can you not feel depressed? I think as human beings, we really crave purpose. We really crave direction. And when we find it, the anxiety and the depression at least kind of turns down a notch, because you have somewhere you're headed towards, you have another direction to focus on. You have something that's bigger than you, right? And that really could be anything. And it could be different for everyone, but we can only really uncover it ourselves. And just like we can only really heal ourselves when we're ready, we can only heal ourselves when we hit that bottom and wake up some determination to really change. So I think that's most of my brain education story.
Oh, I love that, especially the last part about having a vision from brain education, because it's so true. If you don't know where your life is going, if it just seems like the only thing you're living for is to get a job, pay the bills, create a family, and do like the check box of all the things that life tell you to do, it seems like where's the goal? And if there's no goal, you're just wandering like a directionless person. And I can only imagine why that would give people anxiety and depression, because we don't know. I feel like there's something more to my life out there, but I don't know what that is. So I really resonate with that part a lot. So when you said that about the vision, about brain education, my heart just, I really resonate with that deeply. So thank you for sharing that.
Glad.
Thank you for sharing that. So let's listen from Danielle. So Danielle, how did brain education help you with your unique struggle, especially if it's a certain exercise, a teaching, or the community aspect, or some other aspect of brain education from your own understanding and interpretation? Please share how brain education has changed you and improved your mental health.
Yeah.
And maybe your like family's mental health too, because you talked about that family dynamic. So if it applies, if it doesn't, then it's okay. But I would just like to hear your story.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so ironically, it was my mother, my adoptive mother, who was like, "Oh, there's a yoga studio down the street," because I was so desperate at the time. And I had some intuitive sense for some reason that I need to go inside. I need to go within, which I think is the first thing that I absolutely love brain education for, giving me a roadmap to go inward and how to manage what's going on in there. Because I know for some people also, and for me at the beginning, going inward was scary, but then there just needed some time to sort through and organize and kind of break through until I could get down deeper. So I knew I wanted to go inside. I was like, maybe I need some yoga, some meditation. My mother said she saw a studio near the house. This is right after I graduated from college and I was visiting my parents. So I went and it began. And really the first thing was the energy meditation exercise, which we call Qigong, which I'm sure anyone watching who's familiar with brain education exercises has seen this. Very simple, but that exercise like transformed me. I feel like the dark cloud started to shift and break up, and I realized how important it was for me to know energy. I did not know key energy or chi or whatever we want to call it. Prana, I was not familiar with it before this moment. So as I started to do this meditation regularly, right? So a couple times a week in class, and then more often class, and then at home. And then I got to the point where it was right out of college. So I was waitressing, right? As a job, at a diner. And I would like do this Qigong underneath the counter at the diner. And it would totally change my mood. It would change my perspective. That was what I noticed. Like something that my eyes were just seeing as dark and scary and anxiety provoking. And then I would just do some Qigong and quiet my thoughts and feel energy inside of me and around me, even just for a moment. And suddenly everything was just lighter. It was brighter. It was more positive. And I felt like this dark cloud was lifting. And I couldn't believe that. I had tried a little bit of yoga in college, which is why I was sort of looking for it when I graduated. And I enjoyed it, but I didn't feel this sustained sense of like well-being, and I'm getting lighter and brighter. And I think I just had some positive thoughts today. I was like amazed at my own self. I was like, I think I don't hate the world for the last 5 minutes. That was amazing. Can I feel more of that? So it kept growing and expanding. So that was the first thing, feeling this energy and realizing this is what brain education really was all about. Tapping into my energy, circulating my energy, bringing my energy into balance. That so much of what I was suffering with, that I was hating myself for, was actually just an imbalance in my energy. So starting to learn those principles, but also feel them inside of me. As Courtney talked about, tapping the lower abdomen, down tapping is also something I grew to love, because once I ground my energy, yeah, my life looks different. The world looks different. That fear is lifted. That anxiety has shifted. So bringing my energy into balance was hugely powerful. And then the other piece was just, and Courtney kind of brought this up in her sharing as well, finding and discovering my true self, taking the Finding True Self workshop, meeting with the essence of me. So really experiencing myself beyond just this physical being who was in so much dark suffering, really recognizing that I was in my own kind of living hell, but I also had my own living heaven inside of me. Not to even get too religious or anything, just a feeling, the hell being the darkness and the heaven being the light, being the huge love and the feeling of overwhelming gratitude just for this life itself, just for being able to breathe and be alive. So experiencing myself that way, and then beginning to experience others, and then the earth, feeling it as this living, breathing energy, and then taking care of that energy inside myself, how to balance my energy, and then knowing myself as a spiritual being. These things, it was so transformative. I mean, at first the cloud was lifting, and then I had a complete shift about my own sense of worth and value, knowing who I am, my value at a very fundamental level. So my confidence started to change, my positivity, and then naturally that love wanted to flow over and share to others, and really just so much wanted to keep becoming that which I felt. So brain education guided me to feel the possibility within me. And I just wanted to keep blossoming that possibility and letting other people know about that possibility inside of them. And so it totally shifted. I didn't need to be consumed by those waves anymore. I still took the journey to keep sorting out what was inside of me by balancing my energy, but it was from a totally different perspective, knowing my inner center. So I feel like that's what brain education gave to me. It gave me back myself, my brain, my heart, my soul. It gave me back my worth, my value, and who I really am and what I want to live this life for. So, I mean, there's so much I could say after doing it for 20 years and sharing it with people, but that's kind of in a nutshell how I had such a dramatic shift. And in terms of your question about family, I think just living from that space and loving my family members from that place has been an incredibly positive change for them. It's like out of the darkness, into a brighter place. You know, I think if we live with anger and sadness and hate for what we experience and the hardships and the people who caused it, that continues to affect our family in a negative way too. But as we let go and we heal and we love and we forgive ourselves, and then it just like flows to each other, I have such a harmonious relationship with my family now. Yeah, there's much more just pure gratitude, appreciation for each other, and sincere love that I think we couldn't share with each other when we were consumed by the mental, emotional struggle that we lived in for so long. So I think there's been a lot of healing for us as well.
I love that. Thank you so much. And I resonate with a lot of different parts of your story, but especially since when you change, it heals the dynamic between you and your family members too. That's something that is directly connected to my story. And then also for the people watching, I want to point out that as Courtney and as Danielle were sharing certain exercises like Qigong and Tanjin tapping, I was looking up the videos that are corresponding on the YouTube channel so I can put the link in the chat. So if you guys look at the chat, you will see what the Tanjin tapping exercise they were talking about. In other words, we call it brainwave vibration when you shake your head side to side with it. So there's a video link there. And then Qigong energy sensing exercise, I found the video too. So there's a video link there too. If you're curious and you missed the video and you're like, okay, well, I want to try those exercises, they're there in the chat. All right. Okay, so yeah, so for me, it's funny because I feel that me sharing after Danielle is very appropriate for all the different sections because so much of her story is actually intertwined with my story. We both had mothers who suffered from mental health, and then we both had some, relationship issues that resulted from that. So as I mentioned to you guys earlier, the kind of root cause of my mental struggle was that I felt like I was the problem. My existence was the problem. So I think my whole life I looked for in my friends or in my partners or my teachers or people around me, like someone who could love me and make me feel like I was not the problem, right? So I was always searching outside of myself for somebody to show me that my negative thought about myself was not true, or make me feel like I was not the problem and that I deserve to live, that I really can be on this earth. So brain education, I feel, when I was also reflecting while I was listening to Courtney and Danielle's story is, the common thread is that we were operating with a negative brain, like a negative mindset about ourselves, about people around us, like I'm not good enough, like I'm not lovable, I hate myself, I can't do it, there's no hope, these negative thoughts that have you trapped in your mind. Brain education taught me through different exercises and teachings how to transform those negative thoughts into positive thoughts. And truly not just like surface positive thoughts that gloss over the negativity, because that's not what we're talking about. It's not like, I love myself, I can do it, like to like gloss over the negativity. It's truly, I feel like pulling it from the root. And when I look back on my journey, I feel what brain education did for me was kind of pull that root trauma of me feeling like I don't belong on this earth and that my existence was the problem. It made me realize that I am valuable as a human being. And that sounds so simple, but for somebody who was suffering from the fact that I feel like I shouldn't exist, and that because I exist, I was giving hurt to other people, that kind of realization, and then all the things that trickle down from that realization of feeling like my existence is precious and my existence has value, and that I can develop a positive relationship with myself rather than hating myself all the time and then asking other people to love me because I can't love myself. That was everything, because everything trickled down from there to now that I felt like I was okay with myself and that I actually have a good positive relationship with myself through the teachings and exercise of brain education that helped me focus within rather than always seeking out. Focus within, connect within, find answers within. It really improved my relationships as well. So for example, I used to resent my parents a lot because I would be like, it's because of you I'm unhappy. It's because you guys are fighting all the time. It's because you created this hostile family environment that I can't be happy. Like blah, blah, blah. It's your fault, your fault, your fault, your fault. I would blame them a lot. So I resented my parents growing up a lot, which made me have so much anger brewing inside of me that unleashed when I was in college. But that's a whole nother story for another life. Um, so I was always blaming, and I was always the victim. So I would be like, if I had different parents, if I had more loving parents, if I had a different blah blah blah, I wouldn't be like this. So I resented them. But after brain education, after I realized, after I kind of separated my expectation of seeing my parents as my parents and just seeing them as human beings who, they have their insecurities, they have their struggles, they weren't always parents from the beginning, they have fears, and being able to see them with more compassion and light that way, because I felt better about myself through brain education. I was able to talk to them and work out things that I was holding inside, and from there heal my relationships with them. Speaking about things does a lot. So before I would just stuff it in and like not be able to talk about it, because like I said, Asian households, my household especially, you don't talk about these things. But now being able to like talk about it and share it in a very mature way, where it's not like I'm like very emotional about it, just a very mature dialogue with my parents. Like now my relationship with my parents, I think, is better, so much better than ever before, and then so much better than I could have ever imagined. I always thought when I got older, when I was an adult, I would just cut all ties with my parents and I'd just be an independent woman by myself. I don't need my parents, right? But now I like appreciate them so much and for all the things that they did. So I really feel like, brain education on the outside, it just seems like tapping exercises, doing this and many different exercises, but actually those exercises served for me the purpose of me becoming my own best friend and me developing a relationship with myself, me being able to love myself because I wasn't able to love myself before. So that was the big, big thing that brain education gave to me, is self-love. And from self-love, everything trickles down. Confidence, relationships, your outlook on the world, everything changes from that. So I really, really, when someone asks me about my story, I really attribute brain education and all the wonderful teachers of brain education, and of course the creator of brain education, Il Chi, who also helped me very closely and very directly. They really changed my life because they really pulled the root of the problem that no other mentor or adult or teacher in my life before. I was seeking, but no other person could do that for me before. Brain education and the masters and Il Chi here were able to do that for me. So it wouldn't be an exaggeration if I say brain education changed my life. And so like Courtney and like Danielle, we share those methods on YouTube and online because we know that there are people who are struggling with the same thing that we struggled with when we were younger. So if we could help somebody who's like our old version of us, if I could even help one person who's struggling with something I used to struggle with, I feel like that would make me so happy. That would make me feel so fulfilled. So I guess that would bring me to my next question, that I really love asking this question for people who have come a long way in their healing journey. And that question is, and you could just say it in like maybe 1 or 2 sentences, something very short, is knowing what you know now, describing your whole healing journey. You've changed so much, you've grown so much, we've all grown and endured so much. Knowing what you know now, what would you say to your old self? So someone who is struggling, maybe someone in the audience, someone who is struggling right now with the things that you mentioned that you once struggled with, from somebody who has walked the path and now overcame it, what would you say to your old self now watching this YouTube live? So how about Courtney, you first?
Yeah, that's a very good question. You're not stupid. You're not ugly. You're not doing anything wrong. And perhaps the main thing I needed to hear was you're okay. Even though it might not feel like you're where you want to be, you're okay and you're going to figure it out. And then the other thing is, at least for me, it was not about curing anxiety. It was about multi-dimensional management of my body, mind, and my emotions. There's not like this off switch where all of a sudden you're going to stop getting anxiety or stop being depressed, which it's not to say it's not going to get better, but the key word is management. You learn how to manage your thoughts, your emotions. That takes time. It takes training. It's lifelong. So you don't just teach a puppy a couple tricks and they're set for life. They need lifelong training, and so do we. So there's no quick fix. It's learning how to manage yourself, how to love yourself, how to find joy where you can, and really allow yourself to be happy, because you are worthy of love. You are worthy of joy, and you are supposed to be here, and you're doing a good job.
Oh. Okay, what about you, Danielle? Knowing what you know now, what would you say to your old self?
Yeah, I think I would also say don't be too hard on yourself. Easy to say, hard to do, I know, but instead try to focus on trusting your intuition, your sense. Follow what guides you, what exercise resonates, what place feels good to you, a book, a teacher, an author, and then do it wholeheartedly, really give yourself to that with your full sincerity. We have to, when we're really struggling or at the bottom, like we talked about, we have to prioritize this in our hearts. I'm important. I deserve to get better. So rather than just researching and trying a little and giving up, you have to be patient and practice consistently and wholeheartedly with your sincerity. And you will for sure find your way as you trust that intuition inside of you.
Oh. This is making my heart all warm, guys. So me, knowing what I know now, what would I say to my old self? So when I think about it, it's actually kind of tied in again with my story, because when I was in that dark place, I didn't feel any love inside of me, and I felt like nobody can feel the love inside of me. So what I want to say to my old self was actually what Ilchi Lee, the founder of Brain Education, said to me, that gave me my first moment that made me think differently about myself. And that was, you have a lot of love inside of you, and the people who can't feel it or see it is because they don't know you well. So trust, and I hope you can feel that you have a lot of love inside of you. So when I first heard that, I was like, oh, really? Somebody can see and feel love inside of me, the love that I can't even feel about myself or give to other people. So if there's somebody who's struggling like me out there, I hope you can know that you do have a lot of love inside of you. And if other people doubt you or other people tell you otherwise, it's because they don't know you. And that's okay. Just feel and trust that you have a lot of love inside, because you do, okay? You do. So that's what I would say to my old self. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, this was so heartwarming. This brought up all the feels of how much I love brain education and how much it changed my life and how much it's changing other people's lives, like you guys too.
Thank you both for sharing. It's so great to hear your stories.
Yeah. And like I said,
thank you for inviting us.
Even just sharing and bringing it out to the world is so much like breaking the stigma against it. I think it's very important. Mm-hmm. So do you have any last words that you want to share to our audience before we wrap up the live?
I only just want to say I can see some people asking questions about specific exercises for specific symptoms. And I want to just recommend people to fully scour BETV, because I know you have kind of something for everything there. And with that self-trust, that intuitive sense, try the exercises, feel them, the ones that work for you. Do them more often, do them more frequently. The ones that don't, it's okay, just pass by. Don't get too caught on, this doesn't work for me, I'm doing it wrong. Just find the ones that you like. It could be very simple. each one of us is so different, and we heal in different ways, and we need different things at different parts of our healing journey. So I could just see those questions coming in, and I wanted to throw that out there. And thank you, Linda, for posting some of those videos with the basics, because I think even the basics of our exercise, the tapping, the energy meditation, can take you really far if you do that stuff consistently.
Yeah. So since I was looking for those videos when you were sharing, my eyeballs were going around everywhere because I was trying to find those videos.
Yeah.
How about you, Courtney? Any last words you want to share with our audience?
Well, I guess another part of my story has been about trusting myself and dealing with a lot of self-doubt. So because of that, I'm offering a live stream this Thursday, May 18th, about decision making. So if my story resonated with you, or if you need some help making decisions, I'll pop a link to that in the chat too. And it was so wonderful to be here. Oh, you'll do it. Good.
Yes. So yeah, I just put in the chat. So this is Courtney's personal YouTube, Authentically Anxious, where she shares her story about dealing with anxiety and things that helped her. So please check out, subscribe her YouTube channel. And then also I mentioned that Danielle and Courtney also make content for and me too, also make content for Earth Management TV. So please check out that YouTube channel too. That is more about going beyond brain education, finding solutions or having discussions about how we can help the world together. So if you're interested in helping the world and being a catalyst for change, please check out Earth Management TV. I think you would really love it. And then, other thing is, I hope you guys really feel inspired by the stories. I see some comments saying thank you. So thank you for listening. And we always, before we plan this live, we go through this like, oh, who would want to hear my story? And oh, are people going to think I'm so negative? Are people going to judge me? It's so scary putting myself out there, which is true from our perspective. So when we hear in the chat that you guys, liked hearing and thought this was a wonderful discussion and conversation, thank you for listening, because, you have your own time, and I know you have many things you could be doing right now, but the fact that you took your time to be here with us and listen to our story and be a part of this conversation about mental health gives me a lot of hope, and I'm so, so grateful to you. So if you're struggling with mental health, or if you know somebody who's struggling with mental health, please know that there is a way out. There is a way to heal. And I hope that through our stories, you can see that there are people and methods and things that you can do to improve, manage, and to overcome your struggle with mental health. So if you want the fastest, easiest way to experience it besides YouTube, we do have brick and mortar studios called Body and Brain. Let me put the link here. So especially if you live in the US, please visit the website Body and Brain. Actually, Courtney and Danielle were instructors at a Body and Brain Center. So Courtney, yeah, she's at a Body and Brain Center now in Boston, where she's from. And then Danielle is in Seattle, and she was a Body and Brain instructor for a long, long time. So check out the brick and mortar studios. Hopefully there's a location near you where you can go in and directly experience a 1-hour brain education based class. So different stretches, tapping, meditation, breathing exercises, different exercises that are unique to our culture that help you do all the things we mentioned. Connect to yourself, find your value, love yourself, do all those things. So highly recommend Body and Brain. And then lastly, Danielle, can you tell us about your book? She's an author.
Oh yeah, sure. Actually, there's a couple things I just wanted to mention here at the end. So yes, I wrote a book called Healing Tree, an adoptee story about hurting, healing, and letting the light shine through, which is my part memoir as an adopted person, and also part kind of teaching memoir. So it's my explanation of brain education, and I break down in the second part of the book different exercises that you can use for processing mostly emotional processing, the exercises that really helped me when I was really deep in the journey. And I also talk in the book about my experience of finding my true self and taking the Finding True Self workshop. And that's the last thing I kind of want to finish with today, is that this Saturday, I'll be teaching an online Intro to Finding True Self webinar, just a 1.5 hour intro for people who might be interested in finding that part of themselves. So I'm really excited to be able to just give a little sample, even for those who can't make it to a program, but just to go deeper into the principle. And also we'll have some time to practice and feel and get closer to the deep side of our heart, which I feel like was really the ultimate key in my healing process, finding my true self. So thanks for letting me share that, Linda.
Yeah, thank you. So you have many resources in the chat. You have Courtney's personal YouTube channel about anxiety. You have Earth Management TV, where all three of us are there making more content. You have Body and Brain, where you can go experience in person a 1-hour class. You have Danielle's book, Healing Tree, that details her very, very unique story about how brain education, body and brain, and her unique journey help manifest all of who she is today. And then if you really connected with her and want to learn more from her specifically, please consider taking her intro webinar to Finding True Self, which is this Saturday. I put the link in the chat here. You have many, many resources. So whichever way you choose, we hope you just get started today on taking care of your mental health, because there's nothing more important than your mental health. Every other kind of health, physical health, emotional health, starts from mental health. So I hope you get started somehow, some way. All right, so thank you all so much for joining. I know we went over the hour, but I felt like it was fruitful, worthwhile conversation. So I hope you guys enjoyed your time. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Danielle, for your time. Yeah, so we will make new content and more live, more things on Brain Education TV and Earth Management TV. So please keep your eyes out, subscribe, like, and click the bell to be notified of all the new videos that come out. Okay, thank you everyone so much. See you next time.
Thank you so much.